Yeah. But obviously we inevitably get the argument, but we need money, don't we?
Sorry, we just had a bit of a technical glitch there.
I heard that in my ears. It sounded like someone was waving a white lightsaber around.
Yeah, it's Jim Phillips' real lightsaber that he actually has. No, it was I think it was, he turned something on, the stereo system was whacked up to like 1,000 decibels. Anyway, so it doesn't matter.
All right. Obviously, we do tend to get the projection a lot of time. I mean, I've got this projection. It's a sort of what's the term? A sort of
like knee-jerk
thing. Yeah, knee-jerk. That's the term I was looking for. We tend to get this knee-jerk reaction of, but we need money. And when I first started advocating the movement, at that point I said, yeah, in our current system, yeah, but that was when I didn't completely realise that money has always been obsolete ever since we've had the technological capability to create the things that we need. Then we've no longer ever needed money.
That's correct, and really that's where that projection first comes from. And people are not stupid when they say that. They are correct. We do need money in the sense that right now the limitation to your life is not having money. So they're right. They just haven't had to ever think about how they would live if they didn't have the ability to have money, and if money wasn't even a trading mechanism. And if you think about it, when New York had the blackouts back in, 2002, 2003, money wouldn't have got you electricity, right? It would have got you some weird stairs. It doesn't do anything. And in fact, as we've discussed, it hinders things. So that's the first level, is they're trying to relate a future projection, a future example of society based on today's logic. And of course, that's very, very unsensible. And if you think about it, actually, it's always been that way with everything. When John Logie Baird demonstrated the TV in Soho, that's exactly what he had to do. He had to demonstrate it. You can't just tell someone, oh, by the way, I've got a magic box that it can have moving pictures and you'll think it's real, and in a few years' time that it'll be in 3D and you won't be able to tell the difference between it and real life. They're going, no, that's impossible, because all we have is radio and gramophones and there can't be anything else. How could you do it? Well, you can have live painting, blah, blah, blah. There's no understanding. So once you understand how it is possible to make a much better society, A, without money, and B, because of there being no money, and then you really go into it and explain it, then actually people become understanding of it. And I'll give you an example of how this is really taking off. It's really taking off at the moment. That the movement's just been represented in El Salvador, and Brazil, at the Cine Futura event with Peter. Peter's been over there.
Oh, right, yeah.
He had like 3 sessions, right? We're appearing, the movement and he are appearing on the front page of their daily newspaper.
Wow.
So this stuff is really getting into the mainstream. So when you hear people say, oh, well, we need money, they must realize that we that they think about is shrinking very quickly in proportion to the number of people who've realized that money isn't doing it for them anymore, and for the others who realized years ago how the mechanisms actually work, or for anybody who's been introduced to the basic logic of fractional reserve banking. If we needed money, it wouldn't be doing what it's doing, right? It doesn't work the way that you think it does. And in fact, it works to the detriment of almost everything in society. So that's, it is picking up pace. And it's picking up pace not because we're particularly interesting people or because we think it's nice. These aren't, it's to do with the logic of where the system's going itself. And just like with a train that's out of control, you've got to read the track ahead to know what evasive maneuvers you can do and how best to prepare for, this sort of system that is essentially by its own logic coming to an end. And by coming to an end, we simply mean that the use of money the way it's used now is going to end, and that we have to really heavily restructure our society. So there's actually nothing that we need money for. It doesn't make a car run. It doesn't make a house warm. Those are all technological progress. And anybody who says, well, people shouldn't get stuff for free, fine, then we'll rip out your sewer system, take your walls away. All these, you can't walk on a footpath anymore.
You can't breathe the air that you breathe anymore.
Yeah, sorry, you're going to have to buy tanks because we need to make money, right? We need to make money, not we need to breathe. So, that's what I normally say to them, not in that order, that's ridiculous. But yeah, if you could bottle air, they would have done, right? And they're starting to bottle water already, and that was something that wasn't done before. So, we can see very, very clearly that everything that we actually need on a biological level, on a social level, has nothing to do with the movement of money anymore.
Yeah, it's very much like what I normally say to people who, the general answer I give to people when they say that to me now is that it's not actually money that we need. It's access to the resources we need to survive. Money is nothing more, nothing less than the tyrannical middleman in between us and the resources we need to survive. And that generally either shuts people up or they go, So I think that's one thing I've kind of noticed is that there's normally when I especially when I talk to people online, if there's a silence, they've either given up or they've agreed. If they keep responding, then I know that they're totally belligerently against it. But I know that I've made at least a little bit of an impact if there's no response. Ironically, But yeah, that's it's all in how we whether we actually experience the reality of what's actually happening. That's why, as you said, that's why our movement's gaining traction, because more and more people are suffering more and actually looking around and thinking, wait a minute, I'm not satisfied with how things are. I want something better. It was the same thing for me. Being quite an open-minded person to begin with anyway, the one thing that was able to, shake me out of capitalist conditioning was when the recession started. I started researching alternative economic systems, and, I was planning on emailing Gordon Brown about the findings of my research and saying you should look into this.
That's so funny as well, isn't it? Because the way that he would have read it is like, oh look, some kook has sent me his idea for a world economy. It would automatically be ignored, and that's the wonderful thing. I really wasn't an open-minded person when I came across Peter's films and generally started to feel the brunt and the full force of what an ill society does on a social level. There was a couple of factors that really shook me into understanding causation of behaviour and all those kinds of things. Before that, I was totally blind, man. I was really your average noisy, well, I'm still noisy, but yeah, your average kind of arrogant, loudmouth that's at parties, those kinds of people. I wasn't wasteful and destructive and hugely selfish, but I wouldn't have called myself, a useful citizen in that sense. And really, it doesn't take long for you to engage with the materials and really start doing some thinking, and then you completely change, don't you? You sort of, your mind stays the same, but your associations start to sort of fit into, the sort of transitional model, if you like, and you start looking at the world around you. You go, holy shit, this is all in the wrong place. Why do we build buildings that we can't move if we need to? Those kinds of things. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, why do we build an economy out of something that's going to run out one day?
Oil and money, isn't it? Oil and money, both finite, basically.
Yeah. Recently when I was putting together the intro for my ZM Global show, and there was the line I put in, how could you build your economy out of something that was going to disappear? It reminded me of back to secondary school. And it was actually in the textbooks, oil being a non-renewable energy.
That's right.
Non-renewable. And
I remember that as well.
Just completely, everyone, myself included, completely blinkered. No
You just blank it, don't you? Go, oh, that's great. I wonder what's on the next page. Oh, look,
yeah.
There's some coal.
Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, it's going to run out one day. Oh well. And just like, no consideration whatsoever. Why, because we're actually brought up to go, yeah, okay, whew, straight over the head, next issue.
Or to feel that you can't make a change. That's the big one. And this is really, this is going to be overcome by the need to change. This is the fascinating thing. You can have as many, you have as many oppositions to this as you want. It's not going to work because it's very much like holding a man down with your hand around his throat. Eventually he will have to breathe, and it's breathe or die. And so as much as you oppress and whatever, and as much as you feel you can never change it, it's going to have to be changed radically. And that's going to be very interesting. It's going to be, we live in what the Chinese would call interesting times, which is in fact a Chinese curse. And it's going to be a curse, but I think it's also going to be the most amazing time of our lives. It's going to be a very interesting next couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, the last year or so, I've realized to myself, I'm actually glad to have been born now, because it's unlike any time in history. Well, I mean, there are some times that
would have felt just as interesting.
Yeah.
You lived from the end of the Dark Ages onwards. That's what it's going to feel like for us, man. You and me, as like 50-year-old RBE people living in the RBE house or whatever, are going to be like, oh, I remember back when we only had cars and all this stuff. We're going to find it incredible that we couldn't get to China in like an hour or whatever, right? Or even if it's, slightly better, like we're going to marvel at the New Age the way that old people don't understand the New Age now,
Yeah.
Oh, this internet, no, this is going to be something that changes everything, and there'll be no way that we can't interact with it because it'll be everything that is our society, and that's going to be very interesting.
It's good. It's very much like the like in films and stuff. You see like these old people gripe and say, "In my day, we never had any stuff like that. Geothermal energy, that was Star Trek back in my day.
You need to get coal on the lungs." Yeah. As if there's no burn in the mine, I'm not using it when it comes out of my heater. Right, exactly.
Back when I was a nipper, we had to kill people to get what we wanted.
That's right. Oh, sure, in my day we had 60% unemployment. Now we've got 100%. That's great.
And back then, that high number was a bad thing.
That's right. It's going to be hard to explain, isn't it? It's going to be impossible to explain. Luckily, technology caught up just enough so that we could capture the last dying embers of this system on our really high-def cameras, and now they will have a good record of things. Twitter, Facebook, whatever, will actually map out in real time, because of course the timestamps are built into everything. Everybody's comments, everyone's situation, all the different news stories, they're going to actually have an interactive map of the past, and they will see some very interesting things, the way that we never saw the Industrial Revolution. Because, by definition, the media was less evolved. So maybe the evolution of the media is in part going to be the historical arbiter, but the real key is, of course, that the reason that the media has evolved at this point is because really it's sort of the other way around. We've now got to a level where we go, oh, look, we can see all the issues around the world, and oh, look, the issues are all the same. Hence, we react to the media and say, this system's got to change. So they actually go hand in hand, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, and it just gives you a completely different, and because of that completely different angle, you can see it completely differently. I mean, recently, I started reading the book Jesus on Thy Face. Have you heard of it?
Thy Face? What's that?
It's basically it's not a large book. It's basically it's more like a graphic novel than anything. It's called Jesus on Thy Face. It's basically the last few years of Jesus's life as catalogued by the news feeds of loads of different people's Facebook pages, and it's basically purporting like there's this because like in the introduction it says this is the chronicling of my last it's Jesus talking, chronicling of the last few years of my life as according to Thy Face, Thy
Face, that's hilarious.
Thy Face, the forerunner of MySpace and Facebook.
Oh, I understand. I thought it was meant to be like Thy Facebook. Okay, right.
Yeah.
So that's really funny.
Yeah, it's there's so many different, and they and it just made me think about the whole sort of thing like differently, like like John Zebedee putting up a picture, and then like Mary Magdalene comments on it, and then and like, you know, even Virgin Mary.
Church likes this.
Yeah, and there's so.
This sounds good. I'm gonna have to hunt this down. This sounds great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was watching Joe Gosling's